The air inside the briefing room buzzed with quiet voices and the hum of the old lights overhead. A group of alien soldiers gathered around a flickering holoscreen, their scales, fur, and armored suits a patchwork of colors and shapes. They were from every corner of the Alliance, tall, short, smooth-skinned, and clawed. All of them had one thing in common. They were trained to fight, and most of them thought humans were strange. In the middle of the room stood Lieutenant Jelen Cross, the only human in the unit. He wore a worn flight jacket, his hair messy from a recent drop mission. A grin tugged at the corner of his face as he finished a story about a creature called a werewolf. "It changes under the full moon," Cross explained, waving his hand in a circle. "A person turns into a huge, snarling beast. Sharp teeth, wild eyes. It hunts through forests, chasing people down." The room burst into laughter. A tall, blue-skinned soldier named Kavor slapped the table, shaking his head. "You humans are the only species that scares itself with made-up beasts. How do you even survive?" Another alien chuckled. "If you believe in such nonsense." Cross leaned back against the wall, his smile not fading. He was used to this. Every time he told stories from Earth, the aliens laughed. To them, myths and old legends were pointless. Nothing was real unless it could be seen or shot down with a plasma rifle. A soft, low voice cut through the noise. "They're not so funny." The room fell silent. Every head turned toward the corner where General Varkish stood. The old war hero's gray scales gleamed in the dim light. One of his 4 arms rested on the hilt of a battle-scarred weapon. His eyes, dark and steady, moved from one soldier to the next. "You laugh because you don't understand," Varkish said. "But I fought beside humans during the siege of Valakar Rift." No one spoke. The mention of that battle silenced even the boldest soldiers. It had been a brutal, hopeless fight against the machines of the Chthon autarky. Many had died. Few spoke of it. Varkish's voice stayed calm, but his words carried weight. "I saw a human soldier take a plasma round through the heart." She stood up again. "I saw another vanish in smoke, only to appear behind enemy lines hours later. I saw things none of you would believe." Kavor frowned. "Battle stories grow in the telling, General. I kept the records," Varkish replied. "And one day, you'll see them." Cross's smile faded. Even he hadn't heard this part before. The general's gaze landed on him. "There's more to your people than you know, Lieutenant." Then Varkish turned and left, leaving a heavy silence behind. The laughter didn't return. Not that day. The next morning, the briefing room was quiet. No one joked. No one told stories. Even the holoscreen hummed softly, showing empty maps and reports. The memory of General Varkish's words hung in the air like thick smoke. Lieutenant Jalen Cross sat alone at one of the metal tables, turning a small worn coin between his fingers. It was a token from Earth, something to remind him of home. The other soldiers kept their distance. They weren't sure what to say to him now. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. Varkish entered, his step steady, his face unreadable. He carried a small black case in one of his lower hands. Without a word, he placed it on the table in front of Cross. "Open it," Varkish said. Cross hesitated, then tapped the lock. The case opened with a soft click. Inside were old data chips, scratched and faded. Each one was marked with strange symbols and dates. "What's this?" Cross asked. "Truth," Varkish answered. The general pressed a button on the holoscreen. Flickering images filled the room. Grainy, old battlefield footage. Humans in torn armor, faces dirty and grim, fighting against towering machines. Plasma bolts lit the sky. Smoke and fire blurred the edges of the screen. One clip showed a soldier standing after being shot through the stomach. Another showed a woman running through open fire, unharmed, while drones exploded around her. One figure seemed to vanish and reappear behind enemy lines, taking down metal giants with nothing but a broken blade. The soldiers in the room watched in silence, their eyes wide. Kavor spoke first. This isn't possible. No one survives wounds like that. They did, Varkish replied. I was there. The general stepped closer to the screen, his voice low and steady. These were not stories. These were real people. They did things that made no sense to science or reason. We recorded it, then buried the records. Why? Cross asked. Varkish's gaze met his. Because the council feared what it meant, feared what humans truly were. The room stayed silent. The images continued, showing impossible acts of survival and strength. The kind of things no other species had ever done. The old tales your people tell, Varkish said, they aren't simple stories. They are pieces of a history you've forgotten. Names and faces passed down in legend, because no one else could explain what they saw. Cross felt a chill run through him. For the first time, he wondered if the old myths from Earth weren't just campfire tales. Maybe, deep down, they were memories. Varkish closed the case and turned to leave. There's more you need to see, he said, but not here. Not yet. He walked out, leaving the room in heavy silence once again. This time, no one laughed. Later that day, Lieutenant Jalen Cross followed General Varkish through a narrow hallway deep inside the Alliance base. The lights flickered overhead, and the walls were lined with old metal panels, scratched and dented from years of war. Cross felt uneasy. This wasn't a part of the base where regular soldiers were allowed. The air smelled of dust and machine oil. Doors on either side were locked tight, marked with signs and languages he couldn't read. Varkish stopped in front of a heavy door. He placed his hand on a scanner, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a small, dark room filled with machines and flickering screens. Strange symbols glowed on the walls. One large holoscreen stood at the far end, waiting. This place was built after the war at Valakar Rift, Varkish said, to hide what the council didn't want others to know. Cross stepped inside, glancing around. He noticed old weapons, damaged armor, and more of the worn data chips like the ones Varkish had shown him earlier. What is all this? Cross asked. Varkish walked to the holoscreen and tapped a control. The screen came to life, showing rows of old files marked classified. Varkish selected one. A grainy video appeared. The image showed a battlefield. Smoke covered everything. Machines shaped like towering insects fired plasma bolts into human lines. But the humans didn't run. One soldier, missing an arm, charged forward, leaping onto a machine and ripping out its core with his bare hands. Cross stared in shock. How is that possible? It isn't, Varkish said quietly, not by the rules of nature. He played another clip. This one showed a woman standing alone as machines surrounded her. Her skin began to glow, and a wave of energy knocked the machines back. She moved faster than any soldier Cross had ever seen. The council told the galaxy these were fakes. Mistakes. Battle stress, Varkish said. But I know better. Cross rubbed the back of his neck. Why would they hide this? Varkish's gaze hardened. Because they feared what it meant. If humans could do these things, then they might not be as simple as everyone believed. And if the Chthon ever learned the truth, they would wipe out Earth to stop it. Cross stepped closer to the screen, watching the impossible acts again and again. Part of him wanted to deny it, but something deep inside him whispered that it was real. You said there was more, Cross said. Varkish nodded. The Chthon are moving. They've built a weapon. It can destroy a planet, and their target is Earth. Cross felt a cold knot in his stomach. We have to warn them, he said. The council won't act, Varkish replied. They'll let Earth fall. Cross clenched his fists. Then we stop it ourselves. Varkish smiled for the first time in days. Good, he said, because we'll need every bit of that old blood before this is over. Dark clouds gathered over the Alliance War Council as news of the Chthon's new weapon spread. The giant war machine, named Void Spear, was powerful enough to tear a planet apart. Its engines fed on stars, and its weapons could turn cities to ash in seconds. The council chamber, a wide room filled with commanders from a dozen species, hummed with voices. Old war generals, advisors, and leaders argued over the next move. Some wanted to attack. Others wanted to pull back. But one thing was clear: Earth was the target. Lieutenant Jalen Cross stood at the edge of the room, watching. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The fate of his home, his people, was being decided by aliens who barely believed his world mattered. "We cannot risk a full battle," a tall commander from the Voran species said. His skin was pale and smooth like stone. "The Kthon will crush any fleet we send. Better to cut our losses. They'll destroy Earth," Cross called out, his voice loud and sharp. Dozens of eyes turned to him. "Earth is one planet among hundreds," another alien snapped. "The Alliance survives by choosing its battles. If we lose our fleets now, more systems will fall." General Varkish, seated at one end of the table, spoke at last. His voice was calm but carried over the room. "If you let them take Earth, you won't just lose a planet. You'll lose something greater." The other commanders exchanged uneasy glances. "You speak of old tales," one muttered. "I speak of what I've seen," Varkish said, "and what I've shown you." He motioned toward Cross. "This human knows the truth. Their people are more than you believe." Cross stepped forward. "We can stop the Kthon. Not with fleets, but with a small strike team. We get aboard that ship. We take out its core." The room erupted in protest. "Suicide. Madness. Impossible." Varkish raised a hand, and the room fell silent again. "Then let those who are willing go." For a long moment, no one spoke. "You'll never make it," the Voran commander sneered. Cross stared at him. "Maybe not, but we'll try. Because if we don't, Earth is gone." Varkish stood. "I will lead the mission." The council argued, but the decision was made. The Alliance would not send its armies. No fleets would come to Earth's aid. But a small team of volunteers would try the impossible. Cross left the chamber with Varkish beside him. "You sure about this, General?" Cross asked. "There's no one else," Varkish replied. "And maybe, just maybe, you'll show them all what old blood really means." Cross nodded. Whatever waited out there, he wouldn't back down. Not now. Not ever. The hangar bay was quiet, except for the hum of engines and the sharp clatter of tools against metal. Old ships rested on landing pads, some patched up so many times their paint was gone. This wasn't a place for new fleets. This was where the forgotten machines and stubborn soldiers gathered. Lieutenant Jalen Cross stood beside General Varkish, watching as the first volunteers arrived. The first to step forward was Kaver, the tall blue-skinned soldier who once laughed at human myths. Now his face was serious, his eyes steady. "I don't believe in your old stories," Kaver said, "but I believe in fighting. And I won't let the Kthon win." Cross gave him a short nod. "Good enough for me." Next came a sharp-clawed, short warrior named Rennick. His people, the Drell, were known for speed and silent kills. Rennick carried 2 thin blades on his back and moved like a shadow. "You'll need someone to get through their defenses," Rennick said quietly. "I'll be that someone." One by one, more arrived. A tall, 4-eyed sniper named Dale, a tech expert called Cora, whose fur shimmered in the light. None of them had reason to protect Earth. Most had never even seen it. But every one of them was tired of seeing the Kthon destroy worlds. Varkish watched them all, his face unreadable. "This won't be a battle," he said. "It'll be a knife in the dark. We get in, we break their weapon, and we get out if we can." Cora glanced at the old ship behind them. It was a battered scout-class cruiser, held together with patches and hope. "We flying that thing?" she asked. "Best I could get without council eyes on us," Varkish replied. "It's fast, quiet, and ignored by patrols." Cross climbed the ramp into the ship's hold. It smelled of old fuel and metal. He ran his hand along the wall. feeling the cold steel beneath his fingers. This wasn't a warship, but it would have to do. "We leave in 1 hour," Varkish said. "Get what you need. Leave what you can't carry." The team scattered to gather weapons and gear. Cross checked a small data pad, reading over the stolen plans of the Void Spear. It was bigger than anything he had ever seen. Layers of shields, weapon grids, and patrols. But it had one weakness, a power core buried deep inside. If they reached it and set charges, the whole ship would go down. The odds were terrible. Cross didn't care. As the team returned, carrying packs and weapons, he felt something strange. It wasn't fear. It wasn't doubt. It was something older. A memory of every old human story, where small groups faced giants and won. He tightened the strap of his gear and looked at his team. "Let's go ruin their day," he said. And without a word, they boarded the ship. The ship lifted off with a low hum, leaving the dusty hangar behind. Its engines, though old, burned steady as they pushed through the cold black of space. Inside the small craft, the team checked weapons, loaded gear, and stayed silent. The mission ahead was dangerous, and every one of them knew it. Lieutenant Jelen Cross sat near the front, staring at a screen that showed the massive shape of Void Spear in the distance. Even from here, the Chthon warship looked like a floating fortress. Black metal towers rose from its surface, and its main weapon hung below like a giant claw ready to strike a planet. Cora, the tech expert, worked quickly at a side panel. "Their sensor range is huge," she said. "If we're seen, we won't have a second chance." "Then let's stay quiet," Cross replied. General Varkish stood behind them, his eyes locked on the target. "We head for the lower docking bay. It's weakly guarded. From there, we move through the maintenance tunnels." Kaver grunted. "You sure this plan came from the old files? Looks like madness to me." "Most good plans are," Varkish answered. As the ship neared the Void Spear, alarms flashed. Cora's hands flew over the controls. "Chthon patrol drones ahead." "How many?" Cross asked. 3, maybe 4. Varkish didn't hesitate. "Take them out." Rennick slipped into the gunner's seat, his sharp eyes narrowing. The old ship's cannons hummed to life. In a blink, 2 plasma bolts shot through space, striking the first drone. It shattered into bright shards. The other drones spun toward them, weapons lighting up. "Hold on," Cross shouted. The ship rolled hard as bolts of green fire streaked past. Rennick fired again, dropping a second drone. The third clipped the side of their ship, sending sparks through the control panels. "Damage?" Varkish asked. "Just a scratch," Cora said, though sweat glistened on her face. The last drone closed in. Before it could fire, Dale took the shot. His long-range cannon hummed, and a blue bolt punched through the drone's core. It spun out of control and vanished into the darkness. "All clear," Cora said. The ship's engines groaned as they slipped beneath the Void Spear, hiding in the giant warship's shadow. Cross felt his pulse steady, though he knew this was only the start. "Docking bay ahead," Varkish said. "Prepare to move." The ship settled onto a narrow platform. No alarms sounded, no guards in sight. It was too quiet. "This is wrong," Kaver muttered. "They don't expect anyone to be this foolish," Cross replied, grabbing his rifle. The team gathered at the ramp as it lowered, the metal groaning softly. Beyond it stretched a wide, dimly lit bay, filled with crates and shadows. Varkish looked at them. "Move fast. Stay sharp." And with weapons raised, the team slipped into the belly of the enemy. The team moved through the darkened halls of the Void Spear, their steps quiet but purposeful. The air smelled sterile, cold, and metallic, like the inside of a massive machine. The walls were smooth and black, with strange symbols glowing faintly in the dark. Rennick, at the front, moved with the grace of a predator. His eyes scanned every corner, every shadow. Dale followed closely behind, his sniper rifle ready, watching for any movement. Kaver, the large Voran, stayed near the rear, his hand resting on his weapon as he kept watch. The silence of the ship pressed down on them. No sounds except the soft hum of machinery and their own breathing. It was almost too quiet. Cross felt his skin crawl. This wasn't the chaos of a battlefield, where explosions and gunfire filled the air. This was something worse. The quiet before the storm. Down this way, Varkish whispered, pointing toward a narrow hallway leading deeper into the ship. They turned the corner and found themselves facing a massive door. A guard stood outside, staring at a console. His back was turned, unaware of the intruders behind him. Quietly, Varkish said. Rennick nodded and moved swiftly, his claws barely making a sound as he slipped behind the guard. In one fluid motion, he pressed a blade against the back of the soldier's neck, pulling him into the shadows without a noise. The guard's body went limp. Clear, Rennick said in a low voice. Varkish gave him a quick nod. Good. Now, to the core. They continued down the hallway, their pace steady but cautious. Every door they passed seemed to have eyes on the other side. The void spear was massive, and every inch felt like a trap. As they approached the central power core, Cora worked quickly, hacking into the ship's systems. The dim lights above flickered as she bypassed security. We're in, she whispered, her fingers flying across the small terminal. Cross felt his heart pound in his ears. They were getting close now. One wrong move, and everything would go wrong. They had to plant the charges, destroy the core, and get out. Fast. Just as Cora finished uploading the sabotage code, a loud alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed, and a robotic voice echoed through the halls. Intruders detected. All units, deploy. We've been spotted. Cross shouted. Move. Varkish's voice was calm, despite the panic that was starting to build. Hold your ground. Finish the mission. Kaver grinned, his sharp teeth showing. About time. Let's give them a real fight. The team rushed to the power core, where Cora set the final charge. The countdown began. As the timer ticked down, the sound of footsteps grew louder. The Chthon were coming. We need to go, Cross said. The team turned and bolted for the exit. The alarm screamed in their ears as they ran, but Cross could feel the rush of adrenaline kicking in. This was the moment. This was what they had trained for. Whatever happened next, they would either succeed or die trying. The countdown echoed in Cross's mind as he and the team sprinted through the hallways of the Void Spear. Each footstep was louder than the last, and every corner seemed to bring them closer to death. The alarms were deafening now, their shrill wail cutting through the air. Behind them, the sound of Chthon soldiers closing in grew faster. They were relentless, their heavy footsteps pounding on the metal floors, their weapons clicking into place. Cross didn't dare look back. He focused on the path ahead, his heart racing in time with the countdown. Just a little further, Cora shouted from the rear, her voice strained. She was the last one, making sure their escape route stayed open. We can make it. We're not making it without a fight, Rennick growled, already shifting his weight, his blades ready. He moved like a shadow, as if he could slip through the chaos without a sound. Cross turned a sharp corner and saw the exit ahead, the ship's loading bay doors glowing faintly. But the Chthon were closing in. Through the dark, he saw the first of them. Large, armored soldiers, their eyes glowing with cold fury. Hold them off, Varkish shouted, his voice steady. Cross, get to the ship. Without thinking, Cross bolted for the door. His feet pounded against the floor as he heard the crackle of gunfire behind him. Plasma bolts and laser shots lit up the corridor, but he kept running. They needed to get back to the ship. They needed to escape. But the Void Spear wasn't going to make it easy. The doors to the loading bay slammed open just as Cross reached them. The sound of the ship's engines roaring to life filled his ears, but so did the sound of Chthon footsteps, too many of them. Kavor stepped into the doorway just as Cross reached the ramp. The big Vorin turned, his weapon raised, a grim smile on his face. You're not leaving without me, he said. Go. The The ship's engines flared, and the ramp started to close, but Caver didn't back down. He fired, sending a stream of energy into the approaching Chthon soldiers. Their bodies crumpled under the fire, but more kept coming. "Hurry up, Caver," Rennick called, his voice sharp. Caver grinned. "I'm not leaving until I've put up a good fight." But finally, with one last roar, he ran up the ramp, and the ship's doors slammed shut behind him. Cross scrambled to the controls. Cora was already at the console, her fingers flying over the keys. "We're clear," she said, her voice tight with focus. "But we don't have much time before they try to disable us." Cross glanced out the viewports just in time to see the Void Spear start to tremble. They had done it. The core was going critical. The weapon was doomed. "We're leaving," Varkish said, his voice calm. Now, the ship's engines roared, and the stars outside began to streak. They were out of the Void Spear, but the battle wasn't over yet. There would be more to face, more to fight. But for now, as the ship shot into the darkness of space, Cross felt something he hadn't in a long time: hope. They had stopped the Chthon, and they had saved Earth.